How's it, everyone? Welcome to another racket review right here on OpenCourt. I'm Kent, and today I'm reviewing a racket that is arguably one of the most popular rackets on the market right now. I finally got my hands on a demo to try, and that racket is, of course, the 2025 Yonex Ezone 98. Let's check it out. Okay, so I'd like to first give a quick shout out to On Point Sports here in Hawaii. They let me borrow this racket. They have a great selection of rackets, particularly Yonex. They have every single racket in the Yonex lineup. So if you guys are interested in Yonex or tennis or pickleball or anything sports related, check out On Point Sports here in Oahu for all your sports related needs. Okay, so the Yonex Ezone 98, I reviewed the previous edition about 3 years ago. It was actually one of the first racket reviews on my channel, so we've come quite a long way, and it's been a while since Yonex has released a new Ezone. So first off, I want to comment on this color. I don't really like it that much, to be honest. I'm not a really big fan of this new, I don't know, what do you call this, ocean blue or something? It's really blue. It kind of reminds me of the all orange Radical that I tested earlier. I personally really like the previous edition's colorway more. They also had this really cool aqua night version of the previous edition. Here's a picture of that. Yeah, I like aesthetics, and I'm not really a huge fan of this colorway. Let me know what you guys think. But more importantly, how does the Ezone play? So the Ezone is one of the most popular lines in the Yonex series because it's a very balanced racket. It's kind of in that tweener range, but it's a 98, so it's not fully leaning more towards power. It does get a decent amount of pop, but it also gets good spin and control and feel, and a lot of players love the Ezone 98. So this racket's super popular. I'm sure you guys have seen other reviews. I've talked about the Ezone on my channel many times before, so I'm going to just keep it kind of short, introducing this racket, some of the new technologies. So Yonex has actually reduced the RA, the stiffness, which means that it's going to be a little bit more comfortable. And also they changed the frame construction. So they actually increased the thickness of the frame here in the upper hoop at the 12 o'clock position, and you'll see that when we get into the specs, and they did that for a little bit more power and stability. Yonex also says that they've included a groove in the inner portion of the frame. Just looking at the racket, I don't see a groove or anything, but supposedly it might be on the inside of the frame, but they said that they included that so the racket will flex and bend a little bit more to get a little bit more power, but also to absorb that shock and vibration, which will offset the thicker beam up here. Usually when you make a beam thicker, it will become a little bit more stiff. And lastly, Yonex has added something called Minolon, which is a vibration dampening material, and they've included it in the shaft, most likely around the throat area here. And it looks like they do still have VDM. It says here on the throat, VDM, vibration dampening mesh, which includes VDM inside the handle here. So now it looks like they have a softening agent inside the frame as well as in the handle, which means that this is probably going to be a very plush and comfortable racket, which for me personally is kind of a letdown because I like those classic stiffer frames. I tried the Percept last year, and although I really liked how that racket played, it was a little bit too dampened for me. So we'll see when I get this out on the court how it plays. And of course, Yonex has kept their signature isometric head design. Looking at this, it looks like they've kept the design similar to the previous Ezone. One thing I didn't like about the new V-Core 98, the newest edition, was that they made the width between the 10 and 2 o'clock positions here a lot wider than the previous edition, which meant that I was flying balls all over the place because the power was uncontrollable. I actually like the V-Core 95 better than the 98 in the most recent update, but it looks like they kept the head shape pretty much the same as the previous Ezone 98, which is good news for me. So let's just take a quick look at the specs. Nothing really has changed except for that beam thickness. So as you notice, it says 23.8 millimeters at the top. So they made it ever so slightly thicker at the top, but they also reduced the RA, the stiffness, so it's going to be a much more comfortable racket. So I'm excited to get out on the court. So let's test out the new 2025 Ezone 98. But before that, if you guys like this content and want to see more, Be sure to overhead smash that like and subscribe button to keep the reviews coming. So let's start with the pros of the 2025 Yonex Ezone 98. This is a very versatile stick, much like the Radical Pro I reviewed previously. I've said in the past I never really meshed with Yonex rackets for whatever reason, and although I own an Ezone DR98, it wasn't my first choice to pull out for a tournament. But the most recent 2 generations of the Ezone have really impressed me, and this update was also very playable. The thing that jumped out at me most right from the get-go was the punch it packed on serves. I will admit the strings were a bit loose, so that helped in power, but I could tell that the racket accelerated really well through the point of contact when serving, and this allowed me to hit some bombs. The slice flat hybrid was my go-to on the first serve. I could reliably win points by serving into the corner or into the body, and I found it really easy to control the placement of fast serves. Net clearance was never an issue, even with my lower gliding slice and flat serves. The kick serve was fine. The string pattern is relatively open, so it does get a decent amount of kick, but it felt like the racket didn't accelerate as easily with my kick serve motion as it did for my slice or flat. Regardless, serving was easily the most fun part of this playtest for me because I haven't been able to serve such powerful serves so easily in a while, and because of my short stature, I need all the help I can get on serves. Another area where the power of the Ezone really stood out was my backhand. One thing I really like about Yonex rackets is that they all have a long handle, which feels really comfortable when I'm swinging my two-handed backhand. I found myself often cheating over to the right so I could more easily hit backhands with the Ezone. My backhand is actually the more consistent of my 2 ground strokes, so whenever I struggle with consistency, I usually start relying on my backhand more. But with the Ezone, I wasn't just using the backhand for consistency, I was attacking and winning points with it or setting myself up for the next shot with ease. The Ezone, along with the Head Extreme and Radical, might be my favorite rackets for the two-handed backhand. Aside from the backhand though, the Ezone is a very good all-around racket from the baseline. It provides a decent amount of power, but it has surprisingly good control. I don't think it's as great as the old V-Core Pros for directional control side to side, but the Ezone is great with depth control. The open pattern creates a nice high net clearance angle, but it doesn't fly long and erratically. I really enjoy teeing off on forehand and doubles when I got a corner-to-corner opportunity. Basically when I run around to hit an inside-out forehand from the left corner and I drive through to hit the ball into the opposite corner. This would pull the opponent off the court and force a defensive shot for my partner to put away at net. I could also easily change direction and hit down the line backhands a lot easier than normal. I typically return from the ad court in doubles, but I rarely hit down the line with my backhand because it's a low percentage shot hitting over the highest part of the net. But with the Ezone, I felt much more confident changing direction than I usually do. The Ezone is also a great all-around racket at net because of its power and ease of use. The sweet spot is large and forgiving, so even if you aren't the most adept volleyer, the Ezone will give you a lot of help. I do think you need to be a bit more disciplined with your swing, however, because the power from the large sweet spot will send the ball long if you have a large backswing. Volleying is the most polished shot in my arsenal, and my short, compact backswing was perfect for the Ezone. By stepping in and making contact in front of my body, the racket provided the power and I didn't feel I needed to try too hard. On a side note, I think the most recent update to the V-Core with its wider head design at 10 and 2 o'clock position is more powerful and thus less predictable than this newest Ezone. Low transition volleys were also pretty easy to punch deep, although I prefer a slightly stiffer frame for more response on low volleys though, because it's easier to keep the ball low over the net with a stiffer frame. However, the new Ezone with all of its dampening tech throughout the entire racket is very comfortable and forgiving on off-center hits. I personally like stiffer frames for more feel and touch, but a lot of players complain about arm issues and stiffness, so objectively, I would have to put the soft response of the new Ezone in the pros. And finally, the Ezone 98 is a very balanced racket in terms of specs, and I think most players can use this racket no problem in stock form. It is light enough to swing without getting fatigued, but also provides ample spin, power, and control. It is also an easily customizable racket to suit your specific needs, and in that regard, it is very versatile. So now let's get into the cons of the 2025 Yonex Ezone 98. First con, which isn't really a con for most people, but it is for me, the dampening. I have a healthy arm with sound mechanics, and I've always liked the stiffer and more responsive frames of the past for a more direct response to the ball. I understand companies are trying to protect players' arms with the rise of co-poly strings. However, I think companies are taking it a bit too far with the dampening. Yonex not only added a new dampening technology in the frame, they also kept the VDM dampening in the handle from the previous generation. So basically there is dampening compounds throughout the entire racket. Consequently, I felt really disconnected from the ball with full swings as well as my drop shots and angles. I found myself engaging in long baseline rallies where I would try to overpower my opponents rather than mix in slices, drop shots, and short angles because I just didn't feel connected enough with the ball to attempt such a risky shot. Although I do prefer this update overall to my DR98, I feel much more connected to the ball with the DR than any update since. Next con was that I struggled to hit effective slices with the 𝐕_ZONE 98. This is probably more of an issue with me than the racket itself, but I had difficulty accelerating through the point of contact. Because of this, my slices tended to float up. If I tried to overexert the slice motion, I pulled the ball down into the net. I think this could be fixed with a bit of tungsten putty under the butt cap to give the racket a more whippy feel. I think weighing down the butt cap can also improve the racket head acceleration on the kick serve as well, because that is another area where I struggled. I actually get better spin on my kick serve with the V-Core Pro and Percept series because the beam is thinner and allows faster acceleration on the kick serve motion. Although the spin generation of the 𝐕_ZONE is respectable, it is by no means a spin monster, but I don't think the 𝐕_ZONE aspires to be that anyway. And last con, I just have to say it, I'm not a fan of the new paint job. I think the subtle blue of the previous generation was more pleasant, and to be frank, I'm not a fan of this particular shade of blue. But let me know what you guys think about the paint job in the comments. If I were to use this 𝐕_ZONE 98 again, I would string it with a crisper string at a higher tension for a bit more control and feel, possibly even natural gut or Technofiber Triax for more response, but also keeping the power level the same. Also, I would weigh down the handle to get a more whippy feel through the point of contact on slices and kick serves. So now, who is the 2025 Yonex 𝐕_ZONE 98 for? It's for players looking for a good all-around racket that they can customize to fit their particular style. That's the thing with this racket. I think it fits too wide a variety of players that it's hard to pinpoint one particular group or playstyle that this racket is meant for. Maybe that's why it's so popular. Also, if you're looking for something that is very forgiving in terms of power and comfort, this new 𝐕_ZONE is one of the softest rackets I've tried that also provides power. The Prince Phantom and Diadem Elevates are also very soft, but they don't provide the punching power of the 𝐕_ZONE. In my opinion, the 𝐕_ZONE is an all-court player's racket and it has more versatility in its use than the V-Core and Percept series. So let me know what you guys think of the new 𝐕_ZONE in the comments below. This is one of the most popular rackets on the market today, so I'm sure you guys have a lot to say. What do you think of the paint job and all this dampening technology Yonex decided to incorporate? Leave your comments below and I'll see you on the next review. Thank you for watching this review of the 2025 Yonex 𝐕_ZONE 98 right here on OpenCourt. If you guys like this content, be sure to overhead smash that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you on an OpenCourt.